So, now that you've seen the video, if you wanted to summarize Alma for a class paper, what would you write? Remember, a summary only articulates the main points and the major supporting points, if any, of the original work. Remember to give your reader only the main points and use your own words. You can go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to try your hand at a summary for Alma. Aim at a paragraph summary of the video. So now that you've had a chance to write a sample summary of your own, let's take a look at one that another student wrote of Alma. The short silent film Alma tells the story of a curious girl who sees a doll in a toy shop window that looks shockingly like herself. After a struggle, she manages to enter the toy shop, in which she sees many other dolls with the likenesses of children. She finally finds the doll she saw in the window, but when she reaches up to touch it, she disappears inside the doll. At the end, the viewer sees the eyes of the doll moving, a doll situated among other dolls whose eyes are also moving. The film ends with another doll appearing in the shop window, presumably to draw the attention of another child. So, notice how that took a lot shorter to read that than it did to watch the video. So already we've got a shorter summary than we do of the original work. The reason we wanted you to watch a video without words is so that you would, again, really focus on working from your memory, not trying to borrow any kind of phrasing from the original work, but really just from your memory, what were the main points? What would you tell a friend if they were to say, what is this about? So again, this is significantly shorter than the original. Going back to the point of objectivity, I've rewritten this paragraph with some evaluative language in it, which is how it should actually not appear, but I want to give you an example of what not to do. So if we include phrases like, the short, well-written film Alma tells the unique story of a curious girl who sees a doll in a toy shop, or she enters the toy shop, which is really cute, or this part was really unrealistic, or the film ends in a weird place. Again, while all this is, I'm sure, to someone true, this is not objective writing. This is including the author's own opinion of what the work was about, evaluations of what the work was about. When you're writing a summary, you really just want to stick to reporting the main points, telling your reader what the main points were. If you want to give a critique, that can maybe come in a different part of your paper, but a summary on its own is objective and not subjective. So, a summary of summary. It's shorter in length than the original work, like we discussed. It uses the writer's own words, not the words of the original author. It highlights only the main points of the original work. It omits supporting or minor details that are not necessary to understanding the main point or argument, and it's objective. It leaves out the writer's opinion about the work. Moving on to our second method of source integration, what is quotation? So like we said in the chart, this is the same words, the same length as the original work. It is exactly as the author originally wrote it. And the quote is for unique wording or phrasing that if it were paraphrased or put into other words would lose the original meaning. Here's an example from a New York Times article. So this is an article about NBC and Facebook pairing up to provide a more viewer-based coverage of the Olympics. So this is a news article, has lots of good information in it. This data is taken exactly from the New York Times article. I've quoted the entire thing. So this is about 3 sentences, 3 or 4 sentences from the news article. I haven't paraphrased anything. I just copied and pasted the entire thing into my paper. Now technically this is fine. I've included quotes. I have a citation. I haven't changed any of the wording. Notice here where it says, said Gary Zenkel, the president of NBC Olympics, a quote within a quote gets single quotes. A quote by itself gets double quotes, a quote within a quote gets single quotes. However, I can make this better. I don't have to quote everything because if you look at the original, not everything was incredibly unique. I could definitely paraphrase a lot of that into my own words, which is what I've done here. So starting July 27th, so I've started with a different sentence structure, Facebook will play a bigger role in the news coverage of the Olympic Games on NBC. So this information is the same from the original article, but it's phrased differently. So rather than quoting everything, already I've taken one sentence and I put it into different words. So it no longer needs to be in quotes. However, the bolded material here is something that some may think, okay, well, that's kind of unique. I mean, how else do you phrase Facebook talk meter? So that I left in quotes because, again, it's unique phrasing that without the original wording might get a different meaning. So I left it in quotes. The quote from the Olympics, from the NBC Olympics president, I left in quotes because I want to add some authority or credibility to what I'm saying. And then later on, I left the listening to talk back as another phrase that kind of has a certain meaning by itself. And if I were to rephrase that somehow, it would probably lose the same ring it has right now. So I left that as well. But from this example, you can see that the whole thing doesn't need to be in quotes. Instead, I've selected certain parts that can be in quotes because the phrasing is unique. It can add authority or credibility to my writing. And to take it out of quotes and to rephrase it would probably take away some of the original meaning. So to keep going in this thread, this is from the same article. It's from a different paragraph. The information in blue, you see that the original I've taken is a sizable chunk. It's a big chunk. Say I don't want to use all of it. Say I want to use a couple of the sentences and some of the phrasing, but some of the phrasing and sentences I don't think I want to use. So if you look at the abbreviated version on the bottom, users of Facebook ... will be reminded about NBC's coverage. The 3 dots signifies that I've taken out a phrase, not a complete sentence, but a phrase. So later this summer, I've taken out. That's a phrase, not a complete sentence. So I'll put 3 dots in its place to tell the reader that I've taken something out, but it wasn't a complete sentence. Later in the paragraph, there's one sentence, the virtuous circle ... I've taken out this entire sentence. I think it's kind of wordy, doesn't really add a lot to my information. It's kind of a supporting point, and I just want to stick to the major points. So because I've taken out an entire sentence, I need to replace it with 4 dots, not 3, but 4. And then later on in the paragraph, I take out some other phrasing, again, not a complete sentence, but just some phrasing. So that would be 3 dots. So this is something that you can also use to help abbreviate the amount of information that you're quoting, is really only quote what's really necessary and what's really important. If there's even a small phrase that kind of adds a flowery feel to it or some supporting information but it's not crucial for the understanding, you can take that out and replace it with some of this advanced punctuation. To summarize quoting, you would use quotation when you want to integrate sources with interesting or unique wording or phrasing. Phrasing that if you were to rephrase it or paraphrase it with your own words, that some of the meaning would be lost. So you want to quote when how something is said is as significant as what is said. Okay? Talk to you soon.